Bruce Lee once said, "I fear not the man who has practiced 10,000 kicks once, but I fear the man who has practiced one kick 10,000 times." And this begs the question, in today's world, changing all the time, fast-paced, is it enough to be good at only one thing? Or do you need to scramble to learn a bunch of different skills? Well, let's talk about it. Today, we've become obsessed with learning. And don't get me wrong, broadly, I think that's a good thing. But the problem is that this compulsion has descended into an obsession with consumption. People will binge watch TED Talks on 2x, 3x, 4x speed, and they'll power through massive amounts of books, almost competitively fact stacking in an attempt to demonstrate intellectual curiosity. And this modern reading habit, I've thought a lot about it, and I think it stems from a deep-rooted cultural insecurity, where we no longer believe that one idea can be transformative, that one idea can be enough. Maybe it's due to increasingly saturated markets, global competition, where we think that we need countless great original ideas to ensure that we're anti-fragile to things that come up, or that we maintain plenty of optionality. But there are plenty of arguments against this. It might seem like some of the world's most successful entrepreneurs that they have this diverse portfolio of profitable ideas, where if one thing doesn't work, they can just hop on and pursue something else. But if you zoom out, you'll see that many of these successful people, they've found their edge by putting their faith in one big idea. They've committed to that idea, and they've studied it so much that the implications have become second nature. And two people, Rich Barton and Richard Moss, come to mind. First, we'll start with Barton. If you've researched buying a house, planning a vacation, or looking for a new job recently, you've probably been exposed to the creations of Richard Barton. Everybody in Silicon Valley knows that consumer technology markets are notoriously difficult. Repeatable success is almost impossible. And so the founders of most of these successful consumer companies, they almost never start a second major one. But Barton has founded not one, not two, but $3 billion companies: Expedia, Zillow, and Glassdoor. And on the surface, these companies look totally different. What could they have in common? But if you peek under the hood a little, you'll see that they're mirror images of each other, and that they operate under one big idea, which Barton calls power to the people. Each of Barton's companies attacked an opaque market, such as real estate with Zillow, travel with Expedia, and corporate recruiting with Glassdoor. And he did it for all three companies using the internet to remove the information asymmetry between establishment gatekeepers and ordinary consumers. So let's look at all three of his companies. Zillow allows you to find the price of any house without contacting a real estate agent. Glassdoor allows you to see how employees feel about their company without having to go through HR. And then Expedia allows you to see prices and also the availability of hotels and flights without having to go through a travel agent. You see, all three of these companies, what Barton did was he sided with the consumer instead of powerful incumbents. Instead of hoarding information, these companies allow consumers to skip the middleman and go directly to the source, which provides far better data and transparency. Now, I'd be remiss not to mention that these three companies also, and crucially, that they capitalized on the parallel wave of smartphones and consumer familiarity with digital platforms and the internet. So now we know Richard Barton, but who is Richard Moss? Well, on a trip to the National Gallery of Art in Melbourne, Australia, I remember being mesmerized by these haunting images of refugees from North Africa and the Middle East that were captured using military-grade thermal detection cameras. This was Richard Moss's photography exhibit called Incoming, which reimagined the utility of military surveillance technology and depicted its subjects through their body heat. Moss represented the refugees in unfamiliar ways, and by doing so, he turned them into inverted silhouettes that now didn't have an identity. Each person glowed with body heat, and instead of being divided by race or where somebody was from, the viewers were united by the shared temperature of humanity. And all of Moss's work, which I looked into after the show, follows this one big idea of using cameras to highlight aspects of the world that are beyond the grasp of the naked eye. His one big idea? To use photography to make the invisible visible. When I was a kid, I used to play this game called Buggy. And what happened was every single time a Volkswagen Buggy would drive by, you get to punch the person who was in the car with you. And what happened was once you started playing Punch Buggy, you realized that there were so many more little Volkswagen Buggies all over the place that you just hadn't seen because you weren't thinking about it. And the world is the same way, that once you commit to focusing on one big idea, you realize that that one big idea is relevant all over the place. So as you're developing your one big idea, you're actually building a framework for how you see the world. Now, you might have some reservations here. You might be saying, forming a worldview seems constraining. You're limiting my ability to pursue different things. And why would I limit myself to a single set of ideas? But here's the thing. In reality, doubling down on one big idea is like walking through a portal into a vast and panoramic space that you could have never imagined. It's the same story that we see in movies, from platform 9 3/4 in Harry Potter, to the rabbit hole in Alice in Wonderland, to the wardrobe at Professor Kirk's house in the Chronicles of Narnia. And when you look at the world through the lens of your one big idea, you end up seeing opportunities that other people are blind to. People will say that if all you have is a hammer, then all you see is nails. And people criticize that, but I say embrace it. Build an incredible hammer and then start looking for nails. And remember that that hammer just ends up being your one big idea. Now, as for me, I'm still developing my one big idea. For now, I've sunk my teeth into the idea of writing on the internet. I believe that people are systematically underestimating the scale and opportunity provided by the internet. And all my thinking orbits around the central idea of the internet's impact on learning, entrepreneurship, and personal relationships, with a focus on how we can write on the internet to improve our lives. But if you're looking for your one big idea, it might be helpful to check out my video on how to find great writing ideas by looking for things that don't make sense.